Yo, 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 what's that word? This is 32 Inning Podcast. I'm your host, Brodrick. We about to knock it out the park. We are here for episode 16. We've been at it for a while now. I want to thank you guys for supporting me. Ways you can support me: like, comment, subscribe. Share this. Add us on Instagram at Hattie's Collection LLC, on Twitter 3012 Inning Podcast, or just 3012 Innings. And without further ado, we'll get into the first segment of episode 16, which I'm going to focus on the bottom 5 teams from each NBA conference. Talk a little bit about the veterans that could be potential trade candidates for contenders. We're going to be on the phone a little bit for this one, so bear with me. First, we're going to start off with the Chicago Bulls. Looking up and down their roster, they have some strong pieces. I'm not sure if they'll want to get off with the trades just because Lonzo Ball has been out, Zach LaVine has been out. And any Bulls fans, if you're watching this, let me know a little bit about what's going on with Lonzo. It seemed like the knee injury, of course, it was the initial one, I believe, January of last year. Then he had to have another one to clean up from that initial surgery. And latest reports is that he might miss the entirety of the season. I know that's a huge blow, and he meant a lot to the team last year. And obviously, he's a nice young player on the defensive and distributing the ball to the many scores that the Bulls have. So, in saying that, if they decide to go the route of trading some of their veteran players, I have heard trades involving the Lakers with DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic for the Lakers' 2 first-round picks, and probably Russ just to make salaries match and things of that nature. In my opinion, it wouldn't be a good trade for the Lakers. Vooch hasn't looked bad this year, but he also hasn't looked like his all-star self. DeMar seems like he's just going to consistently be DeMar, which is good. Maybe DeMar by himself in 1 first-round pick is worth it. I just don't see a scenario where they should give up both first-round picks. But regardless, DeMar can go to a multitude of teams. He's greatly enhanced his playmaking. Obviously, we know that from his time in San Antonio. And he'd be a good fit as instant offense for a lot of playoff teams. He's a good veteran presence. We're going to move on from them. Oh, also Andre Drummond from the Bulls. He'd be a nice pickup for any team for rebounding. Seems to be an enthusiastic player that you need on the bench. And I think that gets understated because as a former athlete, you see a lot of the times you're excited when you see your teammates excited. If everybody down, if y'all just got the feeling of we just going through the motions, that can bleed through in the play on the field, especially if you're in a losing situation and people ain't ecstatic. You expect to lose, and you want to have a culture to where everybody's excited about coming to work. And when the game starts, you know that these guys got your back. So moving on from the Bulls. And again, we're going to the 5 teams at the bottom of the standings in each conference. I'll speed it up here. Our next team we're going to focus on is the Detroit Pistons, who I believe have the worst record in the league. They picked up a few guys from the Knicks who I thought would be moved right now in trade packages. One of the major ones is Bogdan Bogdanovic. Is his last name Bogdanovic? I'm pretty sure it is. Yes, Bogdan Bogdanovic. So, of course, he's a really good shooter, a good one-on-one player, post-game, and he's played in a lot of good systems. Spread the ball around, knows how to play good team defense. Isn't much on the defensive end, but, again, great at spreading the floor. Again, he's been involved with the Lakers, and we'll see what transpires that. Another one is Nerlens Noel. A sturdy rim protector. He can move around really well, really athletic. guy. Not sure he'd be of interest for the Lakers in particular because of the whole court case against Clutch Sports in Rich Paul. Um, and I believe Kemba Walker. I'm not sure is he still with them. About a month ago, he was expected to sign with the Mavericks. Not sure if that went through. I haven't heard about him being in Dallas. If there's any Detroit fans watching, let me know if that came about. Not Detroit, but any Dallas fans watching, let me know if that came about. And Detroit fans, you might have some information on it too. Next team we're going to move on to. Charlotte. I would say Gordon Hayward, but we all know that at this point he's just an injury waiting to happen. It sucks to say that about a person, but at this point we know he's an injury waiting to happen. So if you're trading for him, it's almost you got to give him the Kawhi treatment. You try to bubble wrap him as much as you can into the playoffs, where he's a great secondary playmaker, great floor raiser, veteran, been in the league a long time. You just got to make sure you manage him really well, manage his minutes. Kelly Oubre Jr. is another one. Athletic player, can shoot the three when he seems to be in the right circumstances. I guess anybody would look good shooting the three wide open in Golden State, but he also looked good when he was in Phoenix. He's bounced around a little bit here, but I think he's still a useful player. He has the athletic traits to be a nice defender, and he fits the mold of what most teams are looking for in the NBA right now, and that's athletic wings. So he could be a good trade candidate for some teams. Not sure what his market would be like, but we'll have to see if any reports come out, and I'll let you guys know. Earlier in the season, we heard about Terry Rozier being a potential trade candidate. Since he's come back, him and Lonzo have come back from their ankle injuries. I think Lonzo actually just came, not Lonzo, sorry, LaMelo had just came back, and he looked good, but he got injured right away again. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. I'm not sure if Terry has came back, but he's a nice secondary ball handler, maybe a primary ball handler, knows how to space the floor. 1 second. Knows how to space the floor, knows how to play solid defense. I wouldn't expect him to be a primary defender, but knows how to play solid team defense, can jump the passing lanes, really athletic player, and he's fearless. He seems like a really great competitor that all those contending teams would want in their team because he fits into their mindset that we all have a common goal, and that's to win. All right. Who else is at the bottom here? We're going to talk, speed it up a little bit. Washington, the big trade piece that we've been hearing lately is Kyle Kuzma. He's been hinting that on Twitter. Little things about the weather in California, how good it is when you step off that plane. You know, he came about and said, you know, he lived here, but we all know he loved being in LA. Obviously, looking back on it, it was a bad trade for the Lakers. Again, he fits the mold of the players that every team in the NBA wants. The young, athletic wings, really good defender, good shooter. And Washington has really improved his one-on-one game and getting others involved. He's a nice, relatively young player, I should say. And we'll see how they go. Orlando, they still have Terrence Ross and Gary Harris. Those are the two primaries. They both shoot the three, a little bit streaky on it, both athletic. Gary Harris is more the defender. If you're looking for more of offense, that'll be Terrence Ross. But two good pieces. And I'm not exactly sure what Orlando would be looking for in either one of those guys, because clearly they're still rebuilding. They're still trying to, I ain't going to say they intentionally trying to lose games, but they're not trying to win games. So they're playing for the lottery odds. They want to get in on Wembanyama, which is the smartest move they could possibly make. Obviously, if you guys have watched my earlier episodes, you know I'm a huge fan of Paolo Banchero. Always thought he should have went #1, and he's showing why that was a good pick. Even though Jabari Smith Jr. has picked it up here in the past couple weeks, obviously they made a great decision and the right decision at the time. So we're going to move to the Western Conference. First team we're going to talk about is the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's actually, they shouldn't be this bad. I know Cat has been out, and that's a huge thing when your best player is out. You know he needed that time to gel with Gobert if they plan to make the playoffs. But if they plan to do any noise in the playoffs, that they needed this time to gel and work out their two big system. And the major struggle was Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert in the beginning of the season. It seems like with more spacing, with Cat being out, which is surprising because Cat is one of the best three-point shooters in NBA history, but especially from the big man position. We've seen them become lob partners, but obviously it hasn't helped to the tune of them winning very many games. As far as players I could see coming off this roster, Taurean Prince will be a useful pick. Again, he fits the mold of the athletic wing, can space the floor, rebounds very well for his position. And Bryn Forbes, good floor spacer. He seems to be one of those energetic teammates that you need. Obviously, a major contender probably won't want to rely on him for major minutes. Just maybe if you're in the quarter and you want to space the floor, give your scorers room to operate in the half court and to go get those buckets, he has to, you're forced to be honest to him because he's a great three-point shooter. Our next team we're going to talk about. Next team we're going to talk about is going to be, now some of these teams we expect to be rebuilding, so they're not going to have many veteran pieces that are going to help out contenders. It's more the veterans are on there to help with culture and to be cap space to be flipped later on. We're going to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Wow, they have an extremely young roster, which isn't surprising. We know OKC got 1 million first-round picks, second-round picks, and they're going to have a young roster for the next decade. So there's not many veteran players on it that you would think about trading for, but I guess one would be Heinrich Williams. They have a lot of young players that overlap his skill set, in my opinion. He used to be one of those prospects that we used to talk about that we can see a contender going after. And he's not getting as much as an opportunity. Maybe he's not being valued properly. If his goal is to develop, then it might sound strange, but it might be better to develop him on a veteran team because he'd be more of one of those young priorities that you can look at instead of being on a team with a bunch of young priorities and all of them vying for minutes. You're going to try to develop the youngest, most promising ones. And on OKC's roster, I wouldn't say he fits into that mold because there's many players on their roster that might be younger, but they also have more upside and potential. So they're going to get the first crack at those minutes. By the way, shout out to SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's really shot up in the individual player rankings. We're going to see Chet Holmgren return next year. And I think those two are going to be a dynamic duo. Wish we really could have got to see him this year. And imagine if they get Wembanyama. That would be crazy. There's so much length, height, versatility in your front court. Houston Rockets. Off the rip, before I even go to them, Eric Gordon was a name that got brought up a lot in trade talks over the summertime. Obviously, he didn't get traded. He's still a veteran piece, good defender, good shooter, can do a lot of things, know how to play team ball, know how to play on the ball and off the ball. Seems like one of those Warriors players. That'll be some, but he seemed like one of those Warriors players that fit in really good with their system. And another one is KJ Martin. He's an athletic player, not on the taller side, but again, extremely explosive. He seems to be in a good place with his roster, but there have been rumblings about him potentially wanting a different opportunity. Maybe he'd be good on the Hornets or something like that. We can develop in the front court with our minutes to be had. Other than that, Boban Marjanovic, I believe 7'6", had a real good camaraderie with Luka. Maybe he gets bought out and goes back to Dallas and things of that nature. They seem to love him there, but business is business. I believe he was involved in the Christian Wood trade. He'd be a nice veteran piece for them, if not just for locker room influence. Next, we're going to talk about the Spurs. So, what I've been going to their roster, two players we're going to talk about is Josh Richardson and Jacob Podol. I hope I'm saying that right. Spurs fans, let me know if I'm botching names and things of that nature. Again, y'all like, comment, subscribe. So, Josh Richardson, again, useful player. Not exactly the elite wing size, but he is a wing player. Can shoot the rock a little bit. Plays solid team defense. Obviously, he's getting valuable knowledge, learning how to play the game, even though he's a veteran under Coach Pop. Jacob Podol, solid big man for defensive and rebounding purposes. Struggles at the free throw line. Struggles offensively in general, but you're getting a guy, again, that's learning the same principles that Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and other big men learned under Coach Pop. He's instilling into Jacob. We've heard over the years that he's been a huge target for the Toronto Raptors. We'll see how that unfolds. They're having a decent season, but Jacob would definitely help them out a lot. We just got to see what his value is. Last but not least, the infamous, the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, episode 15, we know, was about me saying that Lakers should trade Anthony Davis and blow it up. AD has had a resurgent season. He's looking like one of the top 5 players in the league. But the Lakers are in 12th place, regardless of the fact LeBron's been hurt. And I still stand by the notion of they should blow it up. If you like to debate with me or have anything to say about that, get in the comment section below and let's talk about it. Even though he's playing well, they're not playing well. And you can see that in the win-loss column. They had a good win against Milwaukee, but some veterans on their team. Patrick Beverley. Pat Bev, quite frankly, he's been awful on the offensive end. Defensively, he's still Pat Bev. Maybe not the individual defender that he once was, but he's still a decent individual defender. We've been hearing rumblings today that he wants to head back to the Minnesota Timberwolves if he's involved in a trade situation where the team he's traded to buys him out. And that'd be a good fit. The Timberwolves need an upgrade in their competitive spirits. They're saying, we know Pat Bev gonna bring that in spades. That boy don't like missing the playoffs. So let's see. Other players that the Lakers on their team. Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn just hasn't been the same since his knee injury. Really, honestly, since he left the cartilage of the Miami Heat system, as a lot of players do. We see that with the Patriots in the NFL, the Miami Heat in the NBA. Players just aren't the same when they leave. I'm not saying he can't bounce back, but as of right now, he looked at it as more of a trade piece when we hear about him. Of course, we got to mention Russell Westbrook. Russ has been playing, I think people are overhyping it. He's been playing good off the bench, and he might be in line to win Sixth Man of the Year, honestly, if he stays on the bench for the rest of the season, where they should honestly keep him. He hasn't been terrible like he was last year, but last year, you got to give credit where credit is due. Russ has played much better this year. Off the bench, excuse me. And after watching them this year, especially their game they just lost against the Celtics, where Jason Tatum literally hit the Kobe shot in LA over LeBron, they are closer to competing than I think all of us thought they were. And again, we talked earlier about DeMar DeRozan trade, or maybe another solid veteran. Maybe they need some help they need some help in the front court to spell AD and LeBron sometimes, but they could also use another ball handler, and especially players that can space the floor. A lot of the players that we talked about, the Lakers could use right now, like a Bogdanovich, a Kelly Oubre Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Josh Richardson. Those type of players will really help out the Lakers in what they need as a team, because it doesn't seem like they're far off with at least competing for home court in the playoffs. And we know when we get into the playoffs, anything can happen because they have a player to the magnitude of LeBron James. Obviously, AD has been playing much better as of late this season. So anything can happen. There's a lot of parity in the NBA right now. No teams are really running away, really separating themselves. The teams that fit those dynamics the best as far as separating themselves have been the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference. But even then, they were just in a tough game with the Lakers, the Celtics. And truthfully, the Lakers should have won that game. And in less than a week, or a little over a week, the Lakers actually beat the Bucks in Milwaukee. So there's a lot of parity in the league. And when there's a lot of parity, it's good to strike when the iron is hot, because everybody has a chance. This ain't the Heatles, the Miami Heat back in the day. This isn't the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant, or in general. The Golden State Warriors are still dominant, but the iron is there to be struck at this point. Our next segment, what we're going to talk about a little bit, is how you guys feel about Deion Sanders moving to Colorado. As you guys don't notice, me and Deion Sanders are from the same hometown. We actually came up in the same neighborhood. Obviously, he's a lot older than me, but there's actually a street from our hometown of Fort Myers named after Deon. He's a legend. Got a lot of respect for him. My favorite team, college, Florida State Seminoles. He lived out that dream of going to Florida State, becoming an All-American, raising the stature of the program for Coach Bobby Bowden, and moving on and having a spectacular career in the NFL, where he's arguably the GOAT of GOATs, but definitely the best defensive back player to ever play the game. Obviously broke my heart last year, stealing Travis Hunter away from us, but you know, I wish I could try to spin it and say something good, but that just hurt, to be quite frank. But it is what it is. He made a decision to join the HBCU, Jackson State University. He came in preaching about, Deon is a very religious, faithful man. He came in preaching about he felt like it was God's calling for him to come to these HBCUs and raise the stature of them. And it goes without saying, he put his own money up to renovate the locker rooms, weight rooms and locker rooms, to bring new equipment. He raised the standard of the uniforms. He raised the standard of the practice, and just the overall spotlight on historically black colleges. And I appreciate that as a black man, and it should be appreciated and should be commendable. As we know, his last game coaching Jackson State will be, I think, December 17th, tomorrow actually, in their bowl game for the HBCU National Championship. Jackson State, undefeated team. Obviously, Travis Hunter on that team, and a list of other former transfers and recruits with Power 5 level talent. And then he's off to Colorado. Before we get into the Colorado business, my feelings on him leaving in general. To me, honestly, it's a little bit I'm on the fence, and I'll explain why. It hurt to hear that he was leaving after 3 years, because yes, he has raised the standard of what an HBCU can potentially be as far as media coverage and revenue, but it's more on like black people as a whole, and people that have the best interests of HBCUs at heart, to come together and put more money into HBCUs, because it's reported that 50% of them by the end of the decade are in danger of being closed down. Just to be frank, the reality of the situation. So in saying that, everything he did for that university, again, it was a positive and it was commendable, but you would have hoped he would have stayed there longer and then maybe jumped to a team in Power 5 that wasn't 1-10 and a school with more than a 1.6 ratio as far as students being African American, which I believe is lowest in the country and signifies that the only African Americans on the campus are the athletes. So when you put it into the notion of things like that, hopefully with him leaving, obviously it's something you can't reverse. I've heard of Ray Lewis' name coming up in the Bethune-Cookman head coaching search. Ed Reed, actually Deion Sanders actually talked about Ed Reed wanting to be a head coach at an HBCU. We've seen players like Eddie George go to his alma mater and be a head coach. I know people might think it's a bad idea for these quote-unquote novice coaches, aka former players, celebrity players, to be head coaches at these programs, but I actually think Deon might have started a positive trend, because if we can get these former famous football players to come in and be head coaches and they bring on a great staff system around them, it could bring in support from our community, because we need the support. We need the support from the people who have the financial significance to help out these universities to raise the stature in order for the kids to feel comfortable in this NIL era to come to the HBCUs. So then when you have the talent and you put the entertainment product on the field for the TV contracts to come in, that helps the school as a whole, and we can grab some of that back away from the Power 5 programs, which I still think is based on competition. I totally understand why athletes would want to go to these Power 5 big programs or just PWIs institutions. It gives you the best chance to go to the NFL, to be on TV, to get NIL opportunities. I totally understand. At the same time, let me ask you guys, is it right for us to have the expectations to raise the HBCUs up to that level again where they can compete with the PWI institutions? Now, can we really question Deon's message behind it? Because honestly, I look at it now like he kind of used the HBCU as a stepping stone opportunity to get to PWI. And again, in ways I can't blame him, because the money is significantly different. He has more money to pay his assistants, and he's gonna fulfill his real dream, which is to be a coach at a major institution and reach his ceiling as a coach. And you can't blame the man for that. I got respect for chasing your dreams. Again, we from the same hometown. He raised the university that I love to a glory level. Now, with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Colorado, and we're going to end it off on those notes. Colorado, I think he's going to do good there. I think anybody from Florida would love going to Colorado. I love Colorado. Been thinking about moving there myself. To be honest, I think he's going to do a good job there. I expect some of his players from Jackson State who haven't entered the transfer portal yet to enter the transfer portal after their bowl game. Wink, wink, Travis Hunter. And we're going to see what they do this year. They also been in talks with Denver Harris. Going to have a huge recruiting weekend at Colorado this week. Again, I like the University of Colorado. I love the state of Colorado. There's not much in-state talent to recruit from, but we know Deon working with the NILs is going to have a huge backing. Their fan base is then enamored by the guy. Obviously, there's no wins or losses yet. There's no swaying of the crowd. It's only positive right now. It's going to be like that for a while. He brings that type of recognition to your program. So, with that being said, I don't know how good they're going to be this year. They are in the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 does have some solid teams towards the top. It's going to be hard coming off a 1-11 season, but he's going to get the talent in there, and we're going to see what he does. I think it's an interesting case study to follow, probably of any team